started the collective, then we all slowly stopped getting work, but still we are expected to carry the weight of changing the entire industry. I'm like, how will I do that without work? I do need to continue being an actor.
I think I've been banned, but I don't remember for what. Must have been something for speaking up or asking for my money that was owed to me or something. I think I was banned one time. But then a lot of people stood up for me, and of course, nobody took that seriously.
I think this whole thing about being difficult, it doesn't take much. You just have to breathe. You just have to, the tone changes and you're done. Exhaled too loud, cut, you're cancelled.
I think women by nature, we just want to like suppress and go through things, and it takes a lot out of us to come and actually talk about it. And I think it's the onus is on a lot of women like us who have the platform or the privilege to actually speak up, so more and more women can speak up.
When you take care of yourself and when you stand up for yourself all the time, then you stand up for everyone else. There is no one or the other way.
I think if you really believe in something, I think it just comes naturally to you, to sort of communicate with someone. If it's something that's unnatural, I feel like there will be some resistance and you will not know how to communicate something. So I think it just is something that came naturally to me. I really wanted to do something for the people. I wanted to learn. There was a lot to learn. I didn't know Mandya as a constituency. Of course, it's where my mother came from.
I think I really am tired of just being an actor. I really love my job, and I think I've worked very hard, and I would continue to hone the skills, and I would like to get better at different genres and stuff. But it's very limiting to just be an actor for me. I want to be so many more things.
After I quit politics and I came back to Bangalore, and I was like, okay, maybe I could try my hand at films again. And I started to hear scripts. I was just wondering whatever happened to all those women-centric films, which were written keeping me in mind.
My entire aim is to understand somebody who is unlike me. Like, look at all the obvious things that I may relate to, and then I chuck them out and I find everything that I disagree with them. That I end up reading the screenplay and I judge them for this. And then I have to justify them for what I disagree with as Parvati. And then I have to now justify to all of you why she's right in her choices.
Then you get targeted, then you have the, CBI, ED, IT. I mean, I don't even know how many more agencies. Then, your films don't get bought. There's a lot of suppression, there's a lot of fear. So I think that's one of the reasons why, even like when we came out with the committee, right, after Fire wrote a letter, there was so much backlash.
It's so hard for people to produce films or direct films. Newcomer directors are just struggling. They have to be part of a clout for them to get investment, man or woman or anybody. So I have been building, I have been writing, I have been dreaming and creating all of it. But yes, producing is on the spectrum right now. For me, it's on the horizon for me to get to, for sure. I mean, that has to happen. I mean, there is no other way. And I also don't believe that I'm only an actor.
The reporter in me wants to scream and say, we have a headline. Parvati wants to become a producer.
Parvati is already a producer in her head.
And director.
And director and writer. Why not?
Yes.
Like, they're so multi-hyphenated. Like, Clint Eastwood, Woody Allen and all of them can do it, or Balendra Menon could do it. And I mean, we're all our own people with a certain vision.
Journalism at its best brings society in conversation with itself. So thank you for being part of this conversation. I know you've been waiting for this special session. It's called On and Off Screen, the Politics of Performance. Let me start by introducing Divya Spandana, actor turned politician turned actor. She's not Manusmriti Advani. Irani? Anyway. Irani? Okay. See, I'm good at forgetting these names. Anyway, she's not a Sanghi, and that I suppose is a great redeeming feature of Ramya's work and her career. Thanks for everything that you do, Ramya. Thanks for being here. We also have Parvati Tirupattu over here. How many of you don't know Parvati? Founder of the Women in Cinema Collective in Kerala. Who hasn't heard about WCC Kerala? Has not heard. Shame on you. Anyway, they're both unique in the sense that they're multilingual political actors. and a rare treasure in today's times. Thanks for being here, doing this panel with us. And our very own woman's planer, Pooja Prasanna. Does she need an explanation? No. What does she need an introduction? Does she need an introduction? No. Pooja Prasanna, Parvati, Divya Spandana. Thank you for being here.
We have, as Sudipto said, two powerful, opinionated women, just the way we like it. And in addition to that, another thing they have in common, amazing actors, top of their fields, and deeply, deeply political in very different ways. I'm not going to take too much time because we want to crunch as much as we can. But I want to start with that last thing I said, deeply political. What does being political mean to you?
I think it has changed over a period of 20 years of being an actor. The absolute freedom of expression that every human being deserves, when that is being shunned and silenced and repressed in so many ways. But it started with it being personal for me. Now I see it everywhere, and I'm able to speak up, or I'm able to leave the stage for someone else to speak up, is because of the education me standing up for myself did. And I had the privilege to do that. But that was personal was political for me. And that started at home. That started at home when, as a woman, when you get your periods, or you're not supposed to touch the clean clothes and not supposed to go to the temple, and all these conversations. And I was always asking why, but why though? And never getting answers. And it didn't feel a good life to live without the dignity of deserving the answers you're asking for, right? And so I started making up my own answers. And if they don't give it to me, then I'll create my own answers and live accordingly. And slowly in this profession, I realized that I was still having it easy, even while it was difficult. And now it's become much larger than that. The biggest turnaround in my understanding of what being political meant is that when you take care of yourself and when you stand up for yourself all the time, then you stand up for everyone else. There is no one or the other way. You can't not do the other thing and do this. So I think that for me is deeply what political is now. Yeah.
When you got into politics, active politics, you were an established actor or household name in Karnataka. That status, that familiarity, being in the spotlight, was that an asset? Was that a liability, or a bit of both?
I think a bit of both. An asset because I think it was so easy for me to connect with the people already knew of me. A liability because I think there are a lot of expectations and I don't have prior experience. Just being an actress, and it's only when I got into politics I realized how much of a bubble I was in, and how far removed I was from reality. I think being in politics also kind of helped me understand the reality and what's really happening on the ground. And I think a bit of both. An asset because it's easier to connect with the people, and then they just know you, so you get elected, which is, I don't think is the right way to do it. I think people should vote only if you see merit in the person, and not because someone's your favorite star. And they connect you with the characters that you've played on screen, and of course a little bit of they know a little bit of me being opinionated and always standing up for a cause. But that's not really the reason that the people of Mandya voted for me. There was also the sympathy wave that I had because I lost my father on the day of my nomination. So I think a lot of factors there. But I think after getting elected, the onus was on me to ensure that I give back the people the kind of love and respect they showed me by working for them. Yeah.
Every time, or most times you're interviewed, it's because you're a powerful voice, like I said. Does it irritate you sometimes and make you feel like screaming, saying, hey, I'm an actor? Don't forget that.
No, I think I still believe, and this is also a very recent realization for me, is that I think I really am tired of just being an actor. I really love my job, and I think I've worked very hard, and I would continue to hone the skills, and I would like to get better at different genres and stuff. But it's very limiting to just be an actor for me. I want to be so many more things. I want to be multifaceted in ways that, And so for that way, powerful voice, I don't know what to do with that. But I am a voice which has a space to speak that I value a lot for sure. So when they say, is it hard being bold and all? I'm like, I'm actually not being bold. You have no idea how scared I am sometimes when I speak. I speak, but in spite of the fear. Yeah, because there is no other way I think I can go to sleep at night. Or then I also have enough people in my life who'd hold me accountable to my words and my actions, and thereby having inculcated that same sort of a mirroring thing that I do to myself. Because in this field, it's very easy for you to have yes people around you, and then you lose that sense of self critique as well. So I'm not sure, but I do tend to retain, or I sort of refuse to let go of my right to fail and my right to be weak and my right to be wrong. I would like to be wrong so that I can also learn, and then I could be wrong publicly, and that's all right, because it's not the end of the world. I mean, I am just one person. But it's when they say, oh, how could Parvati be wrong? I'm like, I am as human as you are. But as long as I'm learning and I'm putting my best foot forward to turn that around as an actor and then as an individual. Just an extension of what Divya you were saying is also there was always a bit of a counterintuitive sort of a space when you become an activist, so to speak, or you start speaking up. Then you can't quite help but see that the audience can't separate Parvati versus the characters. And I was always very sad about that. Oh my God, I'm going to lose that. Like I can't be invisible anymore. I have to speak up. But I actually enjoy the juxtaposition of that now, because it's even more challenging for me to now get through to people as the character. And so that's an added advantage as a challenge for me as an actor. But it also gives me the right to be the person who speaks up to clean up house, you know. So yeah.
The right to fail, and I
Right
want
to
to
be wrong,
add, as a woman, the right to say, I don't know, is
Thank
so
God.
liberating, right? We've been having those
For
conversations.
anyone, actually, just to not know is okay. I mean,
And
nobody's.
just to be able to say it and
Yeah.
own it, I
that
don't
needs
know.
a lot of humility. But I think as women, we always, most women, I think it's more like a defense mechanism. We don't want to be in a vulnerable position, so we pretend to know everything just so that we're not taken for granted.
I mean, it's so
Sometimes.
easy for that little space when we say we're vulnerable, like you said, and we don't know something. It's easy for people in power position to take us off the table. So yeah, there is a bit of performativeness that's required. Like I might say I know something and then read upon it a little later. I've done that. I'm not gonna lie. But do you internally in your inner compass want to learn? That at the end of the day is the only compass you need to answer to. The rest of the performativeness, I think we all do that in our lives, in our workspace for the sake of staying in that. And yes, for women, it is far more difficult. For minorities, it's far more difficult. So I'm like, kudos to you if you're performing around that. But deep down, are you getting skilled and are you reading up on things to get better at it? Because at the end of the day, that's the only thing you get to answer to, I think. Yeah.
Speaking of performance in your two chosen fields, as an actor, your project. No.
Which are the two fields?
No, as an actor, you're projecting somebody's vision, somebody's perception.
Yeah.
As a politician, at least on paper, you're expected to own your narrative, your message. Is that something that you struggled with, or the flip came very easily to you?
I think films, I've always been a director's actor, but I've also been someone, initially there was a bit of resistance where I would question and I would have, I would want to understand my character better, but then the directors would be like, I think you just need to know this and you need to do your performance. I don't think there's, you don't need to know more. But then a little later into my career, I think they became a lot more, they included me and, my suggestions were taken into consideration. But I've mostly been a director's actor. So it's mostly whatever they expected of me, I was able to perform. I think in politics, I don't think I've ever had any opposing view to my party because I think we're on the same page on a lot of things, whether it's women's rights or equality, injustice, whether it's speaking up for, people who are suppressed, whether it's the media or the minorities or anyone. So I don't think I've really had any opposing view as such with the party. So it's not been difficult to, just own that space and, speak up for these things that I also personally believe in, which is why I don't understand how people can just switch parties like that, right? Because then what happens to ideology? What happens to your beliefs? Because it's my personal beliefs that are sort of that resonate with the party's beliefs as well, what they stand for. So I don't know how you can just switch parties like that. Yeah.
Crafting your own message, is that something that came naturally to you? Because like you said, you were a director's actor, and here you have ownership of what you want to be as a politician. As an MP, what are the issues?
Yeah.
How do you communicate that? Did that come easily?
I think if you really believe in something, I think it just comes naturally to you, to sort of communicate with someone. If it's something that's unnatural, I feel like there will be some resistance and you will not know how to communicate something. So I think it just is something that came naturally to me. I really wanted to do something for the people. I wanted to learn. There was a lot to learn. I didn't know Mandya as a constituency. Of course, it's where my mother came from, where my grandparents are from, but I've never been there except when I was a child, and I didn't know what the issues of the people were. I had 10 days before being elected to go to the constituency. I didn't know names, nothing. So I learned everything on the job. But for me, I just wanted to do something for them. So that eagerness, that sincerity was there. So which is why I think it just came very naturally to sort of, yeah.
Your last, let's say, few performances as Anju, these are very powerful characters that you've chosen. One, I want to know what goes through your mind when you're choosing these characters. And do you relate to these characters? Because given that you are a personality like that in some ways, so do you look at characters that you can relate to? What is the process like now?
It's never been. I think the one thing that I've always tried right from the beginning, for many reasons. I think when I started, my one place to go and look for some sort of support to understand what acting as a skill could be was to just copiously watch interviews of other actors like Meryl Streep, or inside the actor studio, just continuously watch them speak about their craft. And so, because we still don't have like a community where actors do speak to each other about their process, or like there seems to be heavy gatekeeping for some odd reason. And also, we don't see actors just sort of jamming together like singers and musicians do. That's one of my hope and dream, that that kind of a space happens. But when I started off, I think it was because of Cate Blanchett, Meryl Streep, their interviews, is that relatability is it's a non-issue. Like my entire aim is to understand somebody who is unlike me. Like, look at all the obvious things that I may relate to, and then I chuck them out and I find everything that I disagree with them. That I end up reading the screenplay and I judge them for this. And then I have to justify them for what I disagree with as Parvati. And then I have to now justify to all of you why she's right in her choices. And in that process of it, and I've said this before, I feel like I will play them, and then somehow remnants of that remains in me, the openness of that remains in me. And hopefully if I meet another person like them in my life, I'm not going to be into a snap judgment about them. Hopefully. And in that sense, that's my return of investment in this job in the biggest sense, right? Like, it keeps stretching my mind before it gets cemented and embittered by my own life experiences. Coming to Anju and many characters, I relate to them in no way. Like, Anju especially is not a person I have seen or met or been around. I don't know of a girl who has gone through something like that. But somebody whose choices, they keep making these choices, and no matter what they do, they end up in hot water, no matter what. I mean, in hindsight, I realize I am like everybody goes through that kind of a phase in their life. But most of my learnings and relatability comes after the fact, after I've done the role, after the movie is released. And then maybe I'm like, oh, actually, yeah, I am. Maybe I did go through something like that. But the intelligence of having performed them with such conviction helps me in my life. And that is a really amazing trip to be on. Yeah.
She almost didn't do the film, she was telling me. And I loved that film. And I can't think of anyone else having played that role other than Parvati. And she's like, I didn't think the film was going to do well. I almost said no to them.
I was so scared. You said what goes on in your mind when you pick projects? Fear. absolute fear. But over a period of time, I think I did get a bit cocky, so to speak, because I'm like, oh yeah, deep, dark, dramatic roles, sure, I'm here. But then this one came to me, and I literally took a step back. I'm like, I don't think I'm that dark inside of my head yet. And then Christo left. 4 years later, they couldn't mount the project, and then he changed a few things around. And in my head, I was like, oh, maybe I've gone through enough shit in my life now to. Nope. I wasn't ready for it at all. But so grateful that I had Christo, by the way he wrote the characters, but Urvashi Chechi, man, I mean, to find a partner like that for a film like that, I'm like, yeah, grateful.
Fear of what? I can't imagine.
Fear of failure, because I'm like, it's easy for me to fear of failure, fear of failing to have simplified who Anju is. It's very easy to simplify confusion, pain, suffocation. I don't know how to perform suffocation. How do you perform vacuum? Like, Anju is a big human-sized vacuum for most part of the movie until she starts standing up for herself. How do you perform vacuum? I don't know that. And I didn't know that. Every day on set was like, and then me and Urvashi will be like, we're crying again in the scene. We're crying again. How do you cry the same way now? So we had to also scrub that away, so that we don't look like this. It's not the same crying in every scene. So, but you can't be like, it's not like a toy you fine tune in a different capacity. There's no algorithm to it. So you have to feel differently. And everything had like such tiny nuance that is different, like 1 degree shifts in every scene. I'm like, Christo, man, this is exhausting. But in doing so, you realize the ability of your mind to stretch so much in understanding people. Nothing like it. Yeah.
Kannada film industry has not been great with experiments, right? Trying out new things. I might get you in a little bit of trouble here.
All the time.
But now that you've done everything there is to be done in the industry, what new things do you want to try? Because you also have your own production house.
Yeah.
Would you want to encourage more women filmmakers? Because God knows we could use more of them.
Yeah.
But for yourself, what is it that you want to try?
I think when I decided to become a producer, I felt that, going back again, after I quit politics and I came back to Bangalore, and I was like, okay, maybe I could try my hand at films again. And I started to hear scripts. I was just wondering whatever happened to all those women-centric films, which were written keeping me in mind, when I was, very active in the films. Those weren't there anymore. And the films that I was getting, all the scripts that I was getting was exactly what I did 20 years ago, and which is one of the reasons why I left doing films, because I was getting saturated. Very few filmmakers, because everything revolves around money, right? Your film also has to make money. So since I was a bankable star, there were a few producers, directors who would make films keeping me in mind. But apart from that, I think after a while, I think it kind of just died down. So I was like, okay, maybe I should produce a film. And I also wanted to experiment, which is why I did Swati Muthina Male Haniye. We won all the awards, but we didn't make any money. Now, I also want to make money.
You are a producer.
Amen.
Yeah. So I think the audience is still not ready, or maybe, the film kind of, we didn't know how to kind of bring in commercial elements also with like a very niche subject like what we brought in. Maybe if we were able to marry both, then maybe we would have been successful as well. But we didn't make any money. But I'm hoping that I think the audience will still keep an open mind to, women-centric films, and they will come and watch our films so we can also make money. And that'll motivate me to make more such films. Yeah.
Yes, please go and watch. But are you never tempted to? I mean, you're such an amazing storyteller. So don't you want to write, direct, produce, maybe, so you have
All
more
of it.
control?
No, all of it. I mean, the control part of it for sure. That's where I think I got motivated for the first time. But I think at some point when I was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, there's a way I used to read screenplays, right? Like we'd get a screenplay and I'm reading the characters, and somehow the part and the performance and the character I'm given was the only thing I would think about. At one point, when I started getting screenplays, I started short dividing. And I'm like, whoa. That's not your job. Why are you doing that? And then I was like, okay, keep that away. And then I started telling the directors to give me narrations instead, because I'm like, I seem to be directing in my head. So that's how I got to know that, oh, it seems like you're ready. Some window has been opened. But it's been a journey to learn that as well. So I didn't have enough. By the way, 2019, like before COVID hit, I had decided to go to New York to study filmmaking, do a short course, and be like a student again. Just learn certain, like I would say things like, "Oh, I want that shot to look like cheese." I mean, what does that mean, dude? Like you have to say the correct jargon for the cameraman to understand what. But I needed to just to understand the things. But I was getting very, very confident, and so for the last 4 or 5 years, I have been building projects. And no matter how successful you are, whatever that means in the industry for a woman, it still is pretty darn difficult to get production and investments to go in place. Not only considering the fact that it's probably women centric films or I'm directing it, but it's also difficult because the industry in itself seems to be going through a massive transformation in terms of the studio culture. It just got sort of the whole OTT spectrum becoming a bit more like a, gotta be careful, shouldn't I? But I guess there is a bit of a parasitical angle to things. You're like, yeah, you are giving so much, but you seem to be also suppressing. There seems to be a lot of I feel like creativity is being suffocated in this process. And yes, it's going to implode soon. I mean, we've seen this time and time again with different ways of production houses and how things have worked. But only time will get to that point. Now, it's so hard for people to produce films or direct films. Newcomer directors are just struggling. They have to be part of a clout for them to get investment, man or woman or anybody. So I have been building, I have been writing, I have been dreaming and creating all of it. But yes, producing is on the spectrum right now. For me, it's on the horizon for me to get to, for sure. I mean, that has to happen. I mean, there is no other way. And I also don't believe, again, I don't believe that I'm only an actor. And it didn't come from, oh, I am a storyteller, so I want to hone into that. It's like I seem to be not finding any spot to do that with the current producing scenarios anyway. So got to find my allies, got to find my people, and then it's about just like hunker down and do the job, do the work.
You have a lot of allies.
Thank you.
And the reporter in me wants to scream and say, we have a headline. Parvati wants to become a producer.
Parvati is already a producer in her head.
And director.
And director and writer. Why not?
Yes.
Like they're so multi-hyphenated. Like Clint Eastwood, Woody Allen, and all of them can do it, or Balendra Menon could do it. And I mean, we're all our own people with a certain vision. And again, I would still like to reserve the right to fail in all of that. So there's always a bit of a side. Thank you. Appreciate that.
One grouse I've had about the Kannada film, amongst many.
Huh? What happened?
She has a grouse against the
The Kannada film industry. It isn't, as an industry, political enough. And in that, I don't mean individuals entering politics. You are probably that rare combination of somebody who entered politics and is political, right? Why is the industry, except for, say, Kaveri and a few of these issues, why has the industry stopped itself from being political?
I think fear, right? Then you get targeted. Then you have the CBI, ED, IT. I mean, I don't even know how many more agencies. Then your films don't get bought. There's a lot of suppression. There's a lot of fear. So I think that's one of the reasons why. Even like when we came out with the committee, right, after Fire wrote a letter, there was so much backlash from the industry itself, and that was shocking. I mean, it was just because someone had a film coming up and they didn't want any controversy around it, so some of them backed out. I mean, so it's just like they're really, really scared. And for them, films is everything. And they don't even want to use their platform to voice their opinion or, speak up for others. So yeah, I'm not scared. So I mean, it's okay. But then there are people who are scared. And I don't judge them and I don't blame them, because she herself said that, sometimes she's scared before speaking up. Because, like the scenario, the environment in the country today is not very nice to people who speak up. So yeah, I think it's just fear. It's just that, yeah, most people don't speak up because of that.
But I do have to add something. I mean, I have had the opportunity to work in Canada for like 4 films, right? And I also stopped at some point to work here only and only because there seemed to be no different variety of characters coming. And it was okay to keep falling in love. That I didn't have a problem with, but it was still the same spec. Yeah. But I was grateful for the 4 films that I did have. But, I was thinking, and this is hopefully not a big ask, when I see TNM subscription videos, right? Like saying, hey, we are ad free and we write long form, which I love,
I
right?
swear I didn't ask her to do
No,
this.
no, 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 no.
It's all on her own.
Sly. No, what I'm saying is, I actually was just thinking when you were speaking about the fear aspect. I am here. Now, this year marks 20 years of being an actor for me. And thank you. The fact that I could still say that I'm here 20 years, yes, I've worked hard, yes, all of that. I got lucky with the kind of roles and I did well and all of that. But there are certain allies, there are certain subscribers because of whom I'm still here. So when we say that there are people who like raid our homes, put us in like hot water in different controversies, but as long as the support is out there, then we continue to be the representative to burrow through this oppression. We get that. And I wish there was like a subscription model for us actors and producers where we could continue to say that, hey, could we also continue to get this support from you? And well, while it's there outside, it's there in the internet, and I do see, and as much as the hate I get, I also see the support. Yeah. But I wonder how that can be translated into like a sustainable model. I started thinking like that because I'm like, we need this. You want us to continue doing this? We do need help. And that's not weakness. That's just, I think, maturity in understanding that I could sustain myself here only and also because of people from the industry, my support group in my personal life, and general public who have noticed and have started changing the conversation around things. And so that is why, in spite of the fear, I'm still like, fuck it, I'm going to be speaking. We'll see.
That's what I
But there's an idea. Right? I mean,
yes. Anybody in the tech space.
I don't know. It could be the future, right?
We already have crowdfunding.
Yeah,
we do have that, but it's still for the indie projects. And then there's this whole thing of where will we distribute it? And then becomes the indie project is just in few festivals and it's gone. No network will acquire it to show. Like right now, Humans in the Loop, the movie is a great example to see that it's going to be acquired soon. It's getting US grant for US distribution in theaters in limited. I'm like, that's actually changing. But then we get one of those and then it's silence. So I'm like, how do we populate more of this as the norm? And how do we shut down the voices of fear, And we have enough people. This is the thing. We started the collective. Then we all slowly stop getting work. But still we are expected to carry the weight of changing the entire industry. I'm like, how will I do that without work? I do need to continue being an actor. I can't just be like, and I will only learn what to change if I continue to stay in the industry. So it's a bit of that part people seem to forget very quickly. The fact that we need to stay employed.
That brings me to my question and this is to both of you, about the culture of shadow ban, right? We saw what happened with Chinmay when she spoke up. And both the industries and other industries that you worked with, associated with, is especially for women. They're notorious for banning women for speaking up. I mean, without taking names, there was an actor who supposedly had an quote-unquote extramarital affair with an actor, a female actor, and she got banned while he continued to get work. But I want your comments on this culture of shadow ban and how that probably stops people from speaking up. Not the two of you, but other colleagues.
I think I've been banned, but I don't remember for what. Must have been something for speaking up or asking for my money that was owed to me or something. I think I was banned one time. But then a lot of people stood up for me, and of course nobody took that seriously. But yes, I do not believe in this whole concept of banning. I think we're in a democracy and everybody is free to voice their opinion even if you don't agree with it. I'm for it. For example, I think when Kamal sir recently said a very factually incorrect statement about Tamil and Kannada, I disagreed with him, and of course it's a factually wrong statement to be made. But you can't ban him for saying something, that you don't agree with. So that was one time that I spoke up. And then I think I completely disagree with this whole banning thing. And it's the easiest thing for people to do in the industry, but I don't think it's taken seriously in Kannada. I don't think anyone's actually been. Hi. Maya. I don't think anyone's actually been banned. I think they just say it to like control you and ask you to shut up and not speak up, but it's not taken really seriously.
Not here in Kannada, it's not. Wow.
No,
Okay. Our
thankfully.
people take it very seriously.
Our industry is not taken seriously.
So the industry don't take it
Yeah.
seriously. I mean, I feel like that, even that's problematic. Like, how dispensable are we for you to take even not the band seriously? I'm like, come on. But no, I was actually.
Do you envy them almost because
No,
do you wish
I
they
have
didn't
I
take
have
the
very
bands in?
few emotions left in me these days. Envy and jealousy and all this. I mean, I wish I had the luxury to feel envy and jealousy. I don't. I either am happy for someone or I am like pure rage. And then there is this, halfway point where I'm sleeping. But I was actually Googling something. It's like what Jane Goodall said is like, it actually doesn't take too much to be considered a difficult woman. That's why there are so many of us. And I was just thinking about that. She also passed away, right, recently. And I think this whole thing about being difficult, it doesn't take much. You just have to breathe. You just have to, the tone changes and you're done. Exhaled too loud, cut, you're cancelled, right? Like, I don't know how it goes from including everything from our reproductive rights to our existence here. And I hear you when you say that we live in a democracy, but I feel like we live in a semblance of a democracy now. I think it's a shadow of a democracy now. So I feel like I'm not trying to be a cynic, but I'm trying to be as realist as possible, is that as we speak, much like sand slipping through our fingers, we are losing the very robust democracy we had in our country. And that applies in every workplace as well, because it's getting mirrored everywhere. It's a domino effect, right? And so in that sense, what I truly believe, and I feel the sooner we accept this, the better, is that society has always benefited from women being dispensable. Always benefited from that. Always there are structures that would try to make us forget of our power, of our capabilities, and of our strength. So there are several systems in place, the beauty industry being one, and many other things of, or spirituality, or your requirement to shoot out babies and populate the earth and all of those things. And that is like mother, God, nature. But again, what not the environment, you're the mother nature. And so walk all over us, I guess. So I'm like, all of this has been weaponized, and women continue to be the collateral damage in the ego fight in the patriarchy, right? So it doesn't take much. So shadow ban is one little cog of the many things that is suffocating us. So my biggest answer to that is, if I'm still existing here in 20 years, that I hope will get people to say, I don't care if the perception of how important a woman is changes. I don't care. As long as my action continues to speak that I will be here, I will continue to stay here no matter what you want out of me, the way I want to. That existence in itself is a revolution that I intend to have. Nothing else seems to be in my control at all. And it sucks. It is horrible some days. You don't know where hope comes from. I miss being an actor. I miss being someone who can just dive into a character and produce more and more art. But I'm also happy to be chosen to do this, because it is a metamorphosis that is so painful. But somebody has to be doing this. And when the path changes, someone else will take this on. I am sitting here, definitely. We're all, I believe, sitting here because of the men and women who did speak up at some point. But we are also here because of those who didn't. So I just do want to be on the right side. So shadow ban, fine, karne do. But we are here. We're not going anywhere is the only thing.
2 quick questions, and I'll give more time for the audience, or I'll be banned and then they'll take it very seriously. And this is a question to both of you. You both have this, deep admiration. People love you, and those who disagree with you probably do it very vehemently, right? Very polarizing in that sense. How do you both view this?
How do I view what?
How does it make you feel? That deep admiration and that vehement disagreement. I don't want to say
One cannot
hate.
exist without the other, right? I mean, they coexist. I mean, not everyone can agree with you at all times. There are people who are your well wishers who may not agree with you on certain things, and then there are those who will oppose you no matter what. Those I don't take very seriously. It's the ones who are very sensible in their criticism, and they actually say things because they mean well. Those are the kind of people I take seriously. The rest of them, put them in jail maybe. You know what I mean, right? You do know what I mean. I don't have to spell it out.
How do you take it? Do you lose sleep over it?
No, I
doesn't-
lose sleep over many other things. First of all, I don't think we are obliged to love and respect. So if when someone hates on me, when someone dislikes me, I'm like, yeah, you have the right to do that. You do that. As long as, you can swing your hands until my nose starts, right? Like, that's fine. But what is important to note is that the hate and the energy with which they do that, it's almost romantic. I mean, see, what an intention, This is what SRK's Bollywood stuff is made out of. I feel like, I don't know how many of you are Taylor Swift fans here. Like, I like my heavy metal death, but I love Taylor Swift too. Her new album has a song called Almost Romantic, which is about her haters saying that, the intention and the determination with which you hate me and write songs against me and all of it, I'm like, thank you. I do feel loved enough to have bothered you so much with my actions. With just me living, it seems to be bothering you. And I feel like only people who love you and hate you can go to those extremes. What does bother me, though, is the well-meaning critiques who want to stay on the fence and not know too much about it. They just are like, I just don't like it. So they will just keep like tongue raufing. And I'm like, that's now noise for me. So I would try to like stay away from that. But I am also a deeply reflective person. So I do go into spirals of like, oh, she called me a bitch. Am I a bitch? So then there's that also. So I do have really amazing friends who will be like, stop going down that spiral. You know who you are. So it's like a whole system in place because you are somebody in the public space. I have a very deep rooted idea of who I am. I do forget how I'm supposed to be in public and all of that. There isn't that level of attention. I do know of headlines being created out of interviews. I mean, that's how much I've learned. Thanks, Pooja. But I don't lose sleep over it. But I think over and over again, each time a wave of hatred comes, I find myself having some somatic response to it. I do freeze. I have low BP sometimes. It does affect your mental health. I'm not going to lie. Because you're like, at the end of the day, you're just a person who you're like, but why? What did I do to you for you to hate me so much? But then you zoom back and you're like, oh, so it's not actually about you at all. It's a larger issue. And then you're like, okay.
I want to end on a positive, hopeful, optimistic note.
What is that? Yes. She found it, guys.
The silver lining in the very dark cloud. Your years of fighting, struggle, speaking up, facing consequences, all of that. I'm talking about WCC. There are incremental changes, positive changes that you see. Give us hope. Tell us what they are.
Oh my God, I'm going to be in trouble for this. There are little coups of changes happening in Malayalam industry. There are intentions being set up. I believe conclaves are the big rage where things are being discussed, but I am yet to see any solid change. There's that for hope for you. I don't see anybody putting down the effort or regrouping study groups to put regulations in place yet. And I feel like the most disrespectful thing about that is that they say, we have time. We don't have time. It's our lives that are being spent without the freedom and the rights that we deserve. And the powers that be believe that as long as we throw a bone and say, oh, we are doing a conclave, or we're doing this, we're doing that, it should be fine. And it still then comes on our shoulder to say that, can you please continue? Can you please? So we are the pressure cookers, right? We are the ones who are putting pressure, and it's quite exhausting to be the only people on whom. So actually, that's why I asked you, where did you find that hope? I mean, my hope is me and people like me who keep showing up no matter what, who can, without any fear, really call the shit out. Beyond that, I'm yet to see a solid paperwork that shows that our workplace rights are going to be put in place. It's apparently under process, but I'm keenly watching what the government can do. But so far, it's been a lot of mouth service.
Attempt 2 at ending on a positive note.
Okay.
And this. We know how terribly the industry reacted to demands of forming an IC, a POSH committee. In fact, my colleague Shivani was telling me, and she was 10 minutes, I take note. Shivani was telling me that in the meeting that was held, the film chamber couldn't differentiate between POSH committee and POXO. They kept saying POXO, POXO, when they meant. So here's again my attempt. Do you hope that there is a committee now, there is some light at the end of this dark tunnel, there will be a committee in some better working conditions for women in Kannada film industry?
I do hope so. As far as I know, from what I heard from Chetan and Kavita, is that they met with the CM, they gave him a letter, and they are yet to set up a committee, whereas the film chamber has set up a committee, which I don't have any faith in. But
that's the
having
hope.
said that, no, but having said that, you know what? We were really looking up to the Malayalam industry, and it's very sad that no one actually came forward to complain. And that kind of sets fear here as well. You know, women didn't go and complain there because obviously they didn't get any work. Maybe the same thing's going to happen to me. And therefore, I'm not going to speak up. So even if a committee does get set up, if nobody's going to go and complain about what they've been through, then our voices are, you know, as good as not speaking up for them.
But it's still, I mean, the system still needs to be there, right? That in itself is.
So they do have a committee set up now by the film chamber, but I really don't know what's happening on that front. And I don't think anyone's really gone and said anything. I think women by nature, we just want to like suppress and go through things. And it takes a lot out of us to come and actually talk about it. And I think the onus is on a lot of women like us who have the platform or the privilege to actually speak up. So more and more women can speak up. But you can give them the platform and, you know, the opportunities too. But if they don't, then you really can't do much.
I have to also add to that, is that, you know, some of the committees that were formed in between, these are not, by the way, the most publicized committee meetings. From my experience and what I know from being part of WCCs, that the people who do go to represent the collective, the way they're slut-shamed in these committee meetings, it doesn't come out in the public, right? The kind of gaslighting that happens there, I mean, you have to stand up there with a lump in your throat and still try to scream out your truth. And they have come with a plan. They will create the committee. Of course, then it shows it's a committee, but everybody has been appointed to take them down, you know. So but then again we go for the next committee meeting, we'll still, so we kept saying that as long as we are breathing and we are showing up, it's a thing. They can't shut the committee down by saying that, hey, nobody spoke up, right? But the trauma that the women come back with, we are the ones holding them because they can't sleep at night, they can't breathe, and they are 5 minutes, okay. And this is literally exactly like that in these committees. Metaphor. But that's the thing, we don't have, don't take it too hard, it's okay. She's like, oh no, what have I done? No, I feel like when I speak about, let's say, my mental health issue, or saying that my BP goes low when there are hatred and hate attack and all of these happens, why do I speak about it? Also to like get it off my chest, because I don't want to pretend to be completely okay, because that is exhausting as well. But what's important also is that when there are women who are like, oh, Parvati is losing work, so maybe I should also do that. But Parvati is losing work, but she's still talking, but she's also trying to make work happen. Okay, maybe I can do that. So I want to give them the full package, you know. I don't want them to only see that I'm not getting work. I want them to see that, hey, I'm going to Egypt. I'm going to travel with my parents and I'm going to have fun as well. And I'm going to continue complaining. And I'm going to try and find that one ally who's going to give me one work. Like one movie, man. That's all it takes. Give me that one film. Keep me alive, keep me here. And I'm getting that, thankfully, right? So hopefully that entire picture being given to women. And also patriarchy works through women in a big weaponized manner, right? Like there are women who shun other women from speaking up. Like what happened with the makeup.
Say that.
Yeah, and the makeup union strike that was happening, the 3 women, the majority of the people who were shutting them down were women, gaslighting them. Now, this is not a pitting women against women thing that I'm saying. I'm saying that we understand that's the heights of fight that we have to fight.
Women do gatekeep patriarchy.
We do.
sometimes.
They end up feeling like, oh, they have to hold on to these resources because there's not enough to share. Actually, there aren't enough to share. But you can't go fix all of that right now. You just have to have enough people speaking up, and you keep the committee alive. You keep the committee going with even one person going there as a soldier, because then they'll just wrap it up saying, "Arey, like we did what we could. These women didn't come up." I'm like, we're not going to let you shut it down.
There were some actresses who
I
went.
would
sorry.
you're getting me in a lot of trouble, the two of you. If I don't
We
let
have so
them
much
take
to
questions,
say.
I am going to be in deep trouble. Three quick questions. I'm terribly sorry, but three quick, short questions.
Can't
please.
promise short answers though. Danya's like, I don't have anything to ask her. No, thank you.
I'm not giving the mic to Tanya.
മലയാളത്തിൻ്റെ പ്രമുഖ പ്രതിഭാശാലിയായ നടി പാർവതി മാഡത്തിന് നമസ്കാരം.
Namaskaram.
After the censor board approved the certificate and started showing in theaters, Hindutva political forces came forward to raise threats against the Malayalam film Empuran. When this happened in Kerala, where secular forces have deep roots, the people of Kerala came forward to speak up for this film. The left-wing government, which strongly supported secularism, also supported the
Sir, can we keep it short?
the
Can you get
freedom
to
of
the question,
expression
please, sir?
on the film. However, superstar Mohanlal apologized to the communal forces who were threatening the film and withdrew the film from theaters and voluntarily submitted it to the censor board again, getting some scenes cut.
If we can just keep it
Yes.
short and get
I
to
would
the
like
question,
to
please.
know Madam's opinion on the team of this film being ready to surrender like this instead of resisting and defeating the threat of communal forces by gaining the support of secular-minded Keralites. Why did Malayalam film make workers?
I got your question. I got your question.
Thank you, sir. What is my opinion on them backing down, basically, right? That I think the apology was quite cowardly. I think that was uncalled for. But then again, you realize that there are so many things for the apologists to benefit from doing this dance. But unfortunately, what happens when they do this is there are so many powerful films that have been forced to kept away from even getting a theatrical release. By being quiet itself is a big crime at these days, but by actually going ahead and apologizing and letting this communal forces fester, you're taking away even more power from those who are speaking the truth and not apologetic about it. So I think that was a quite cowardly act, but a film being questioned and attacked, I believe that has to continue happening. I'm not saying, oh, nobody should criticize. Like, let people reveal themselves on Twitter and other places. Let people be questioned. But the fear is, it comes from people who apologize. It's like, I want to be forever liked, right? And that's another kind of a disease. You can't afford that in these times. So for those people who can have the courage to be disliked, maybe will refrain from apologizing for a decision that they have made, and they can maybe stand by their own art, I guess, yeah.
Soumya. Hi.
Hi, my
So
name
first of all, amazing. It was an absolute treat to. Oh, okay.
Oh, so sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, of course.
Hi, my name is Sia and I'm 11-year-old. And I see that all three of you are very successful in your own fields. So, yeah. So, if you had a message to convey to the next generation and the young girls like me, what would it be?
I as a woman, this is something I say. I think we should just be ourselves, be unapologetic, and I love it when women just rebel in whatever ways. It could be through your writing, through how you think. Do not be apologetic about who you are, what you are. It's okay if you're wrong. Like she said, we learn. We'll say we don't know, we'll learn. but don't let them kind of pressure you. I'm going to hand it back to them.
Parvati.
I would say having an idea of what success means to you would be great, and allow it to change and evolve. Allow it to be as selfish as it needs to be, as ambitious as it needs to be. My thought is that there is so much of limitation from being ambitious. For the longest time, I wasn't ambitious at all, frankly. I just went with what was coming towards me, and I did get quite lucky as well. But it's now that I seem to have, I feel like 11-year-old now. You know, I'm like, I want this also, I want this also. Like suddenly, like some Hulk is happening. And I'm like, I wish I had that when I was actually 11 years old or 24, 25. There was so much shrinking that was happening. Walk away from places that inspire you to shrink. Stay close to people who keep telling you to expand as you are. And you'll continue to learn. You will learn, you'll fall. But stay in places who allow you to do that as well. Okay? Best.
I never give advice.
അപ്പൊ നമ്മളാരായി?
I don't believe in that. But I think just tune into yourself and you'll figure it out. There's a voice within you that will tell you what is right, what is wrong, how to be, how not to be. I think just listen to that voice. Just tap into it. Yeah, that's it. Soumya.
So first of all, it was an absolute treat to listen to all of you. And I just want to also say kudos and thanks for News Minute and News Laundry for making this happen. And I mean, you, both of you are just amazing. Please stay the same. Please continue to speak up. And also, please come to politics.
Me?
Come, yeah,
Bro.
yeah. Ramya, you need to come back.
Oh, sweet.
I'm not joking, yeah.
Yeah. I think she means you.
No. Pooja, our number.
Everyone has been landing in trouble today.
Now, you corporate election, that's always there. But Ramya need to come back. And of course, Parvati. Oh my God, it was an absolute treat. You speak so well. Please.
I might. There's anything's
another
possible.
headline.
I might. That's all I know. Seems like a bit of a broken record. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Last question.
Thanks.
One last question.
This young man here. You want a question, right?
I'd like if it can be a woman asking a question. Yes.
Hi, Parvati. This
Hi.
is to you. We see two Parvati. Both of that Parvati inspires us. Okay. One is a person who fights, stand up every day and fight it on behalf of many of us. And there is one super skilled actress. So as a person, when you act out a very beautiful scene, that night do you sleep more peacefully and happily, or the day that when WCC win a fight, that you go back to a beautiful sleep, peaceful one? I want to know.
Oh my God. It is the acting part. I haven't gotten a good sleep since WCC was formed, to be very honest. And I am a bit of too much of a realist to take any of, I do appreciate, right? The smallest changes are there. But every time a new door opens, you realize, oh my God, the next set of stairs are this much. So then you only have time to buckle up. There is hardly ever any time to celebrate. Frankly, it's only when other people tell us this is happening is when I'm actually noticing, oh, these things are happening. Because our focus seems to be like, oh, we have so much more to do. We have so much more to go. But the acting part is actually realized so much easier than this one. But also there are 15 more of me in my head. So it'll all slowly be revealed.